You're a good boy.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Library Advisory Commission meeting for May 17th. This meeting is being recorded and streamed live to YouTube. To join this webinar using a telephone only, please dial any of the following numbers, and I'll read two of them aloud. 1-833-548-0276 or 1-877-853-5247, and then slowly enter the webinar ID of 954-7368-1603. As an attendee, this meeting is being recorded and streamed live to YouTube. Your microphone is muted for the entire presentation unless you have a comment. You do not need a microphone, camera, or a screen if you only want to listen to the meeting, as it is accessible by landline or mobile phone. The Commission will take public comments as outlined in the posted agenda and in the next slides. All comments must include the agenda item number and be received prior to the close of public comment on that agenda item. If you're joining by computer, you may use the Q&A feature to type your comments. On the attendee control bar near the bottom of your screen, you'll see the Q&A icon. You may also use the raise hand icon to raise your hand. The moderator will call your name when it is your turn. State your full name for the record, and then continue with your comment. You will have 3 minutes of speaking time. In the lower left corner, you'll see audio settings, and then the raise hand and Q&A icons in the middle, and then leave in a red rectangle in the lower right. If you are using a mobile device, the Q&A icon and the raise hand icons likely appear near the top right corner of the screen, so everything's in reverse. You'll see leave meeting in red letters, and then in the upper right corner, you'll see the raise hand and the Q&A icon. If you've used Zoom to call into this meeting, you may raise your hand by pressing *9 on your keypad. The moderator will call out the last 3 digits of your phone number when it is your turn to comment. Press *6 to unmute yourself. You will have 3 minutes of speaking time. Once the commission begins, if you're joining by computer, to see all of the panelists, you may need to use the Zoom controls and set the view to gallery. Depending on the size of your mobile device screen, you may need to scroll over to view whoever is speaking. And then finally, if you're accessing this meeting via the web browser only or a Chromebook, you will not see all panelists at one time, only the panelists speaking. The chair of the commission, Lindsay Bass, will now call the meeting to order. We're transitioning to gallery view. Please stand by.
Good evening, everyone. Clerk Sumano Vargas, will you please call the roll?
Jennifer Mount.
Here.
Mary Ripma.
Here.
Mike Termini. Thank you.
I'm sorry, did you get that? Here?
There you go. Thank you. Tricia Wynne.
Here.
Vice Chair Rena Dubin.
Here.
Chair Lindsay Bass.
Here. We do have one member absent, Commissioner Landreth. We'll provide an update when we get to member reports there. Item number 2 on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Everybody has had a chance to review that, hopefully. Are there any questions? Are there any public comments?
Chair Bass, there are no public comments.
Do we want to entertain any motions?
I move approval of the agenda.
Commissioner Wynne has moved approval. Is there a second?
I can second.
Commissioner Dubin seconds. Clerk Sumano Vargas, will you please do a roll call vote?
Jennifer Mount.
Approved.
Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Mike Termini,
Aye.
Tricia Wynne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rena Dubin,
Aye.
and Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. We have unanimous approval. The agenda is adopted. We'll move along to item number 3, which is oral communications. Just briefly, any member of the audience may address the board on any matter either on or off the agenda that is within the board's jurisdiction. Please note, however, that the board is not able to undertake extended discussion or act on non-agendized items. Such items can be referred to staff for the appropriate action, which may include placement on a future agenda. If you intend to address a subject that is on the agenda, please hold your comments regarding that item until it is before the board so that we may properly address all comments on that subject at the same time. In general, 3 minutes will be permitted per speaker during oral communication. A maximum of 30 minutes is set aside for oral communications at this time. Moderator Jones, do we have any oral communications tonight?
Chair Bass, there are no public comments.
Okay. We will then close oral communications and move right along to agenda item number 4, which is the report by the library director, and I will turn the floor over to Director Nimitz.
I included a report that updates all of the projects. I just wanted to say 3 brief things. Capitola is quickly coming to fruition. The Friends did an amazing event just, I think, May 8th, which was a sneak peek walkthrough. We are planning our celebration on June 12th. We'll talk a little bit more about the governor's health order, but we're going to plan a virtual morning with speeches and celebrations, and then some tours in the afternoon for the public. And I hope that you'll all be able to attend. Aptos continues to move along. We've been quickly selecting furniture. Scotts Valley's timeline has changed a little bit, and it looks like we'll be closing Scotts Valley around August 1st, a month prior to when we had anticipated. Other than that, I have no other updates. And we're going to talk a little bit about how reopening is going later in the agenda.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for Director Nimitz? Seeing none, are there any public comments on the library director's report?
Chair Bass, there are no public comments.
Okay, I don't believe there's any action required, so we will move along to our member reports. Are there any reports by commissioners? I will then just briefly announce that Jim Landreth, who has been a commissioner for many years, submitted his resignation tonight. So unfortunately, we have our newest commissioner member joining us tonight. Thought we would have a full slate of commissioners finally, but we're still in pursuit of that aim. So we'll be sad to see Jim leave us, but we'll be searching for a replacement for his seat. And I want to make sure that we provide some time now to have our newest commissioner, Jennifer Mount, just give a brief introduction to yourself and what you're looking to achieve with us on the commission during your term.
Thank you, Commissioner Bass. It is a pleasure to be with you all tonight. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I am Jennifer Mount, and I am a Felton resident. I have been part of the Felton Library Friends for the past year, and I have 2 sons who are 5 and 7. And I'm extremely passionate about seeing our community thrive. And I feel like our library system is one of the reasons that is possible. And I work very closely with Cabrillo College Extension. I do leadership development and run their professional development programs there. And I really see this as an opportunity here at the LAC to just broaden my horizons about our community and build new networks and just build those resources to see our community thrive. So thank you for having me. Look forward to being a part of this commission.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard. And thanks to former Commissioner Cotter and Supervisor McPherson for bringing such a talented individual to the commission. So we're thrilled to have you aboard. If there are no other member reports, I will move along to our consent calendar. All the items listed in the consent calendar will be enacted in one motion in the form listed below. There will be no separate discussion on these items prior to the time the board votes on the action unless members of the public or the board request specific items to be discussed for separate review. Items pulled for separate discussion will be considered following general business. Are there any requests to pull items from the consent calendar? We have one item, the minutes from our April 19th meeting. Any requests from commissioners? Seeing none, do we have any requests from the public?
Chair Bass, there are no requests from the public to pull the item from the consent calendar.
I'll
All
move to
right. We have a motion to move the consent calendar forward. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Wynne seconds.
Mhm.
Clerk Simona Vargas, will you please do a roll call vote?
Jennifer Mount,
Aye.
Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Mike Termini,
Aye.
Tricia Wynne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rena Dubin,
Aye.
and Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. Consent calendar passes unanimously. And we'll move along to general business. The first item on our general business agenda is the next steps for the reopening of the library, and I will turn to Director Nimitz for
So-
her input on.
We did provide this item to you last month and forwarded it to the Joint Powers Board, which approved it on May 6th. I just wanted Eric to come and talk a little bit about how it's going. As you know, we've kind of had a lot of competing sort of health directives, which continues to prove challenging. But overall, I think it's been a really positive experience. Eric?
No, it was, I'll just add, we've been receiving text messages from staff and just how ecstatic patrons have been, which is just really heartening for all of us. And so it's going really quite well. And as I think you all know, a big component of this too is just getting that staffing hired up. So now we're working really hard to do that recruitment because it was a really great week with the board voting, and really appreciate the commission's support there to bring that staffing back so that we can really return to normal. And it's really feeling more and more like we're getting there. So we still have a lot of work ahead of us for onboarding. I think we lost over 60 plus individuals, and then we had the frozen positions. So there's a lot of work ahead of us to get there, but it's really exciting work now. So it feels very different than it did a year ago, that's for sure.
And I just want to say, when the CDC last week announced that if you're vaccinated, masks are no longer required, has posed a problem. The state of California still has a mask mandate till June 15th, and the county does as well. I would say that we've had this small portion of our patronage that has had a great deal of difficulty understanding the need for masks, and we have enforced those rules, but in some cases it has resulted in a level of conflict we really don't want to incur. And I suspect that with the new federal guidelines changing and the state we're likely to have some conflict over the next month. But I think it was really helpful that the state of California clarified their position today. So at least the word is out that we're not alone in that. But it's interesting times and interesting challenges. Overall, it's going really, really well. I do want to say that we, in the reopening plan, we don't fully reopen Aptos just because it's going to close so quickly. We didn't feel like the modifications we needed to do to the building were going to be useful. And then we're doing downtown the week of June 15th. Really, as a result of our staffing issues, we need to get at least some of the temporary staff on board to be able to open both upstairs and downstairs in that building. So, but now all the other libraries opened with the last set as of today. Kind of exciting. And that's all I have, Chairman Bass.
Any thoughts or questions for Director Nimitz?
Well, I have just one kind of comment question. So, when I read through this whole packet, there's so much about staffing and so much about library closing. And I know it's probably this huge chess game and you have to move people, but with so many libraries closing or closed, and then, working to reopen, how are you going to move, staff from library to library just to get the coverage that you need to, to open up these libraries?
We first started by consolidating our administrative staff so that one person, Laura Whaley, is doing all the scheduling for the frontline staff so that she can continually rearrange them and also use people between branches. That hasn't always been a joyful thing for the staff, but it's really the only way we've been able to manage over the last year. We have decided that we're going to keep that administrative structure through this next fiscal year, because at one point we'll actually have 5 open, 5 closed. And it's just a way to manage it. I think Laura's getting really good at this. And I liken it, and this is actually, it's a series of interlocking worksheets that work together. So for example, Capitola is going to be 4 times the size of the branch prior. We're going to take basically all of the staff from Aptos and put them in Capitola. Usually we do that with the exception of the branch manager, and we have been giving branch managers special assignments, or in some cases they have filled vacant positions. So we have the branch manager from Garfield Park and Branch of 40 serving as the assistant branch manager at the downtown branch. And first we staff by regions. If we can't fully do that, then we go to holistic changes. It is really difficult for some of our staff because our branches, Boulder Creek to La Selva Beach during rush hour, is an incredibly difficult drive. So again, we try to honor to some degree people's capacity. We actually have a number of employees that actually come from South County and places like North Monterey. And so it's really hard to put people like that at Boulder Creek. So
that was a
Thank you.
really good response. I will just add too, just to keep in mind, when we close a branch, then we typically expand hours in another library in that region to compensate for the lost time. So that's also why when we're shifting staff over, they're needed for those extra hours that we're trying to provide the community.
And we do it in other ways, like La Selva Beach, we made a bookmobile stop while the branch was closed. So It's an art, it's not a science.
Yeah, and a puzzle piece will continue to
Yeah.
expand as we bring on these new recruits, and then fill them in. So a lot of people know that they're going somewhere and it's going to be temporary until we fill those positions.
And I just need to acknowledge Laura Whaley has been brilliant. She's actually worked really closely with the staff and brought the staff along. I'm very, very appreciative of the work that she's done. We've been meeting consistently with the unions, and it's gone remarkably well. It takes time, but I think we get universal endorsement over the directions we're going.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Termini, did you have a question? Comment?
I do have a question. I have a more detailed question when we get into the budget, sort of related. But for now, I know that you have many, many positions that you shed, like 97, I think. Was that the number that you used, roughly? And
Yeah.
with half the branches closed, you're going to be bringing people on more slowly than just trying to fill the 97. And, you know, the angst I had reading the budget and reading your opening report was for you, because I know that the governing board does not consider this an art. They consider it a science. They want you to be scientific, and you can't. So enough said.
I do want to say, you know, the next item is sort of, maybe let's get to the next item and then we'll talk about that some more, Commissioner Termini, because I would like to talk about that.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners? I was going to ask quickly, given that you guys have been having to move staff at a variety of different levels around the different branches, I'm just curious, are there any kind of new insights or cross-learning that's happening as a result of that, in terms of like branches, you know, figuring out what others have done or best practice sharing, things of that nature? What are there any silver linings to the magic that you're having to do right now?
You know, absolutely. I think the most interesting piece is I think that the entire staff is way more sensitive to the difficult work that our part-time temporary staff does, in the sheer volume of books and the physical labor that it takes to move them around the system, because everybody's been doing it. And I think everyone is going to be much more appreciative of our frontline workers. Now, I would say that I think that there's been a call out about the fairness of having such a large number of our staff being temporary on call without benefits, as people have learned the volume of work that they do and that the physical labor that's involved. And I think that's something that we'll probably be doing some analysis on. You know, Eric's been kind of saying this for the last 2 years. We're too dependent on temporary staff and it's expensive. But I think it raises some real equity questions. Commissioner Termini raised his hand.
Having lived through this sort of a thing 10 years ago with a library, I think we need to really keep tuned into potential workers' comp claims, because 10, 14 years ago, they spiked in a ridiculous manner when just this sort of event took place. So just something to always be aware of.
Really good point.
I think you were looking for also silver linings.
Okay. Eric, you got one?
You know, and I'll say we couldn't have gotten through this year where we went through really three different service models without an enormous amount of collaboration. And so there was absolutely a lot of cross learning. And we what we did throughout the year was we would pilot every change at a different branch. And then we'd send staff over to see it. And they would learn not just how that was working, but some other things that branch is doing, because it's often a tension in library systems where branches will complain there isn't consistency enough across branches, and then patrons have a different experience or they have a different set of expectations. And and that's always something that we'll be working to improve on. But I think we learned a lot about that type of thing, especially over the past year.
Very cool. Thanks so much, you guys. No action is required on this item, so if there are no further comments or questions, we can move along to item number B, which is the restoration of base level funding to begin the process of restoring SCPL hours and services.
And again, this was something that we've brought to you in form a month ago, brought to the JPA on May 6th. And honestly, to my surprise, they passed it. And they agreed to restore our base level staffing. And I really do want to thank both Lindsay and Bruce Cotter from the Friends of the Library. I think they did a really effective job representing the citizens of Santa Cruz County and saying, this is really important to us to get these hours and services back as soon as possible. And so I really, really want to thank them for that. And I appreciate all the work because I know many of you did some things on the side. The thing, and we'll get into this with the budget piece, all of these are interrelated, is we had a long conversation about the kind of analytical work that they want to get done in order to prove that the staffing level is necessary for the number of branches and the services we provide. And this is what I think Mike was referring to with sort of a scientific approach. They were very insistent that they felt that they needed an analyst. Lindsay, I was really grateful. They came back and said this doesn't have to be an either or. I'm glad that they went on the record saying that, because in the past that hasn't always been true. And so I was really grateful for them saying, you know, we're interested in this so much, we're willing to fund additions to the frontline staff as well as analytical work. We have been talking about whether we want to do contractors or whether we want to do an analyst. I think based on the conversation you'll see in the budget packet, we probably will move forward with the concept of an analyst. They also want to get a subcommittee of the board to look at this. I think in particular, the county and the city of Capitola are really interested in getting into the weeds on this. And that will at least allow us to do that because it's really difficult to get into the weeds at a board meeting. And then I think we'll probably have some recommendations both for in preparation of mid-year and for the next year budget cycle. Depending upon how they let us create this committee, we might want to have try to get an LAC member on it. If they're not necessarily looking at it that way, we might want to include a liaison to observe. Eric, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
No, I think that covers it well.
I had a question. I'm just curious if they gave any reasoning as to why now that we need this analyst when there's so much changes happening. That's the piece of it that is really, really hard for me to wrap myself around.
I think now is because they have this whole series of really large decisions to make. One of the difficulties I see with our governance is the requirement that they be unanimous in their approach to something makes it really difficult to make decisions and makes it really easy to put them off and study them. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. I think that they're good stewards of the public's resources, but it is very hard to get a single vision on many of these issues. And so I think they want a lot of data to help them make those decisions. It's everything from what our staffing levels are, what the hours are. And let's be honest, there's competition between branches, what the staffing and hours are, and they have a vested interest in trying to maximize their own branches. But it's also things like, how do we create a maintenance fund and a long-term capital plan, and how do we fund that so we never get in this situation again with our facilities? Those are important and big questions. I'm sure we can keep an analyst busy.
Other comments or questions? I love the idea of somebody from this group being involved in some way in the subcommittee. Looking at Commissioner Termini.
Yeah, I would love to. And with regard to the governing board, not that I frequent smoke-filled rooms, but I visited a few in the last month. And, you know, their concern, I think, is all the pressure they're getting for the maintenance of effort and really having the money pass through. So they're basically looking for grounds. They're looking for findings. So we can help them with that.
Great. Well, thank you for the update. And in terms of the LAC's role, I want to thank this group for putting together some good motions at our last meeting. You all sent me forward with everything that we needed to represent the community. So appreciate that very much. If there's nothing else on this item, we can move along. I don't believe there's any action required, so we can move along to agenda item C. I should check in with Moderator Jones. Do we have any public comment on this item?
Chair Bass, there are no public comments.
Okay, let's move along to, very excited about this one. Item number C on the agenda, which is the plan for development of the library strategic plan. And I believe Eric's going to give us an overview on this.
Yes, hi, and good evening again to everyone, and welcome, Jennifer. We are all looking forward to the time when we will be back in person and holding these meetings at our libraries. So it'd be nice to meet everybody and see everyone again in person. And this project, I'm very excited about this too, because this to me really signals that we are going back to kind of our more normal operations. You may remember, had to put this on pause last year because, and everyone agreed, it was just, the world was too uncertain for us to sit down and try to develop a strategic plan, since we didn't really know where things were going week to week, let alone over the next 3 years. But we do, I think, have a better picture as to what we can do and where we can go. This is the last plan was a 3-year strategic plan, and we intend to do that going forward with this one. There's a little bit of a background on if you're unfamiliar with why an organization does a strategic plan. It provides a little bit of a background in that report as to why. And real quick, in a nutshell, because the world is changing so quickly and libraries are changing so quickly, we want to make sure that our mission and our operations and our resources all align with one another, and also that we're communicating that well, both to our staff as well as to the public and the board and the LAC. So that is really, in a nutshell, what the work of the strategic plan is. We broke it down into 7 sections, and what the management team will do is assemble a team to represent the organization from its different divisions, and then they will begin this work. And the work of that team really is then to reach out to the prioritized groups that are listed below, and it may add to that. in this process. And I'll just pause to say quickly that we began a project last year, even during and kept it going through the pandemic, because we felt it was so crucial to review how the library works through the lens of equity, both within the organization and also through the community. And so that team will play a large role in the development of this strategic plan. And some of them will be on the team that helps develop the strategic plan. So those two groups are going to be very much wedded together. And then also I'll say too, that team will stay working after the strategic plan is done to review the metrics of that work and to see how effective the strategic plan is going. So just real quick, the 7 sections or stages of the plan, we'll be reviewing with that team the development of the previous strategic plan, and we provided a short little history of that in this report. And then they're going to go out and review current models and tools that are being used and look at best practices, not just with libraries, but museums and then other institutions and learning institutions to see what they're using. And then they will go into a process. We're fortunate, we invested time in the organization with an organization called Harwood, which teaches institutions like ours to go out and really listen to the community and have conversations with them to find out what their needs are. Because what we've learned over time is you don't go out and ask people, what can the library do for you? Because people already have a preconceived idea of what a library is, and that may not actually be what we are today or hope to be tomorrow. And instead, we try to turn it around and ask more, what do you need? What does your community need? What's working well, what's not working well? And to really then figure out, can our resources and our organization help address those needs and concerns? So they will develop the kind of survey questions that we'll need for the different groups that we have prioritized and that they will probably add to. And then we have a staff retreat, which we skipped last year. Typically we have 2. So we didn't have, we haven't had a staff retreat, though. We did do something different than we've ever done, which is we have weekly staff meetings via Zoom. We didn't have all staff for the entire organization meet that way, but we've been doing that since the pandemic began. But it'll be nice to see everyone again, and our intention is to hold it at the new Capitola Library and then close to the public and use that space to bring the entire organization together and go through some trainings that we have. And then also to do a SWOT analysis with them of the organization. And then we'll be meeting and providing updates here at the LAC as well as with the board and trying to get feedback from them as we go forward with the process. And we will synthesize the data that we get back from the surveys and the other work that we're doing around the strategic plan. And then we will work with both the LAC and the board to develop goals for the library, and then we'll come back and complete the plan. And there's also a timeline. So those are the 7 sections, and then at the bottom you'll see of the report you'll see a timeline. And so we come back in February of 2022 for final board approval. And I think that will tee us up well for the budget discussions that will happen in the spring with the new strategic plan. And I think there's some good timing here since we're developing this subcommittee with the board to kind of go into the weeds, because I think the strategic plan also really provides an excellent opportunity to educate everyone around the unique work that not everyone sees that goes on in the library. I mean, there are so many things. Most people see it. I would say the majority of the public still sees it as just an exchange of books, when really there are so many services where we work to support early education, early learning. And we work with the jails. We do outreach with a bookmobile. We do lots of services to support the community find homes and jobs. And we also provide for individuals to receive a high school education through the library through a special program that we have. So that's just a handful of things, but there are many, many services that we provide. And I think the strategic plan will help us learn what services maybe we shouldn't continue to provide because there's someone else in the community providing that service and doing it well. But it may also mean that we have to take on some other services that we've not focused on. So doing this while we're getting into the weeds of what our staffing model is, I think is in some ways good timing. So I'm open to any questions. Yeah.
Questions?
I just want to make a comment that I was really, my breath taken away by the strategic plan, the way you guys have coped with everything going on, and then to leap right into that. I mean, it's impressive.
Thank you.
Questions? Other questions?
I just want to say something. I think changing, we had a question earlier this week about why are we doing this right now? Maybe we should wait another year. And I think the leadership team really spent some time thinking about that because our plates are so full. But we really believe that we want to use these building improvements as leverage for creating a new kind of library. And we want to address some really big issues like equity. And we really feel like we need to set the staff up for the new way of being as these libraries open. And so I really do think that there is a certain need to get sort of that framework laid out over the next year so that we can begin being that new type of library and changing both internally and externally.
Yes, Commissioner Dubin.
And just to piggyback on that a little bit, I really like the 3-year timeline that it sounds like it is, as opposed to 5 years or something longer, just because we are in such a transition time that that seems the right bit to be focused on. So I'm really excited for it.
Thanks. And also to just add, it's been such a rough year, obviously, and in large part because we had to reduce our staff so much. And so now that we're bringing on new staff, a lot of new staff, it's hard to make a cultural change inside an organization. But when you have a new cohort of individuals who are coming on board all at the same time, it does sometimes make that cultural change a little bit easier.
Okay, we can make it a shorter meeting today.
Just a couple of comments from my
Okay.
side. I'll be brief though.
Take your time, Lindsay. This is important.
I as well, I'm really excited. I think, you can always have things that come up that pull you away from doing this kind of strategic thinking. And this past year, that made a ton of sense. But I think giving your leadership team and then the staff kind of this roadmap, as the system comes back into, full operational working makes a ton of sense. I was just going to I was looking at the documents online and in the packet and noticed that you all also have an IT strategic planning document that was very thorough. And I just wanted to provide a little bit of feedback on as I was looking at that, some of the things that really resonated I would love to see come out of this process for the broader strategic plan were the metrics that they laid out really clearly, as well as kind of the goals with the objectives and the activities tied to each goal. I thought was a really nice, clean format. And just, Eric, to your point, in terms of, how difficult it is to try to create that pivot in any kind of transition or change, you know, having a document that kind of lays out, here's where we are and here's where we want to go. And just if there's any kind of like targets that you guys can build into that goal setting process, I think that'll be potentially a powerful motivator. So those were just a couple of comments. And there's one other thing, but it's leaving me and I'll email you guys. But very excited about this.
And I do want to say that there's several members of this board that have experienced strategic planning and would love to know about some of your experiences and potentially use your expertise if we can. If you're willing to share. Any other comments?
If there's no further comments, we will just check in with Moderator Jones to see if we have any public comments on this item.
Chair Bass, we do have a public comment. It says the community may express an assortment of wants and needs, but with limited resources, the library cannot be all things to all people. The library cannot provide social services. Information literacy and education and love of reading should remain at the forefront of library services. And that's from Judy Gretscha. And that's the end of that comment.
And that is our only public comment. Is that correct?
Correct. That's the end of all public comments. Sorry about that.
And no problem. Additional commissioner comments. Commissioner Termini.
Regarding the last comment, I think that at our core and at all libraries' core, we are a social service organization. Always have been since Alexandria. So there you go.
Any other?
And I just want to comment. I agree with Commissioner Termini's assessment that, you know, for example, we've helped people with jobs search for centuries. So what is a social service and what is core become really essential conversations, especially when we have limited resources. And so, and we have differing opinions, but I think we need to spend some time talking about what are the priorities in this community. And I would argue so much of our community has information needs that would be categorized as social services, almost a black hole of need. We are going to have to make some decisions about where we can have the greatest impact. But those are difficult choices that strategic planning helps us articulate.
Well said. Seeing no other hands raised, are there any motions? We have a recommended action to review and endorse the plan for the development of a library strategic plan.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I heard Rena first. Go with Commissioner Dubin on the second. Clerk Simona Vargas, will you please do a roll call vote?
Jennifer Mount,
Aye.
Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Mike Termini,
Aye.
Tricia Wynne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rena Dubin,
Aye.
and Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. That motion passes unanimously. On to item D of the general business agenda is the FY22 Santa Cruz Public Library budget. Director
So
Nemeth.
we keep fleshing out the budget with more detail. This is what we basically provided on May 6th. The thing I really just wanted to turn your attention to, and again, I'm not really looking for action, but on page 14 of the budget document or page 41 of your packet, there is a spreadsheet that says budget overview. I think the big fundamental thing that changed was if you look at the very bottom of 2021 year-end estimate, it says remaining fund balance and reserve. 2 days before the JPA meeting, we got notice from the city of Santa Cruz that their estimate for our reserve was going to be 2.8 million and that our fund balance was now up to over 4 million. And I want to say, we took so many significant cuts. Our sales tax came in much higher than our projections proved or had estimated. And then we just had lots of savings along the way, like, we weren't cleaning the libraries because nobody was in them. We stopped our security contract. Our supply spending went down because we weren't doing so many in-person children's programs. So that is a result of a whole series of cost savings. But that balance really is, I think, the thing that ended up changing the JPA's mind about being able to begin to fill our current complement because it was so significant.
Okay.
And also in the packet, Kira, our analyst, put together an analysis of our reserve over time that showed that we've been running really significantly large reserves and fund balances over time. You can see the requests that we were asking for. We did in particular have a conversation about the desire to end late fees. Mary, if it's okay, Mary had sent me a series of questions. And I think this was great. If you actually kind of have a long set of questions, if you could send them to me individually before the meeting, I can do some preparation so I can get them answered. In the report, the white paper we did on late fees, there is reference to a study that several public libraries did. The concern was that it would increase wait times for books on hold. And those libraries found that it didn't increase wait time. The one thing Mary gave me is a couple examples of wait times right now on holds, and just had asked the question of how do we handle this? Our budget, we try to, every time we get 5 people on a waiting list, we try to add a copy. So for every 5 requests, we try to add a copy. I'll be very honest, right now with the year end, we have totally spent our book budget because we invested so much in digital resources this year. We're not meeting that goal right now. The other question she asked was about digital holds. We participate in a digital library that is all Northern California. And so she showed an example of being on a waiting list. Oh, and now I'm forgetting, but it was huge. The waiting list was like 400, 500 people. And the thing about the digital holds is it doesn't show how many copies, digital copies we own. We tend to be one of the largest purchasers of digital copies, and our patrons get preference. So what you'll find on those digital holds is that you don't go from 10 to 9 to 8 to 7. You kind of jump by 20 and then 50, and because you're actually on a different prioritization list than the number assumes. So if you see 500, if we're buying more copies, you're going to move down that list faster. So it really is more not a measure of how many people are in front of you. It's just to kind of keep you aware of when it's possibly going to show up so that you're prepared. But it's not a good measure of the number of copies. A lot of people want to say, if there's 500 people, I need to take 500 times 3 weeks, and that's when I'll get the book. And it doesn't fully work that way. I do want to say, though, that there are more holds on digital materials than that 5:1 ratio. Does that answer most of your questions, Mary? And please, thank you for asking them. I think those are the kinds of things that the public are interested in, and we'd be happy to do a little research and share. I do feel like at least 3 of the 4 commissioners seemed interested in supporting the law or ending the late fee program.
Mhm.
I
We have
will.
4 board members. You said commissioners.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. This is another place where I think Lindsay's conversations and additions to the conversation and Bruce Cotter from the Friends was really helpful. You know, I am viewed as sort of the bureaucrat. I think they respond really well to members of the public coming forward and saying this is really important to us, and we agree with this. So it does feel like that may pass next month. You know, we also had a small position changes. I don't think that was controversial in any way. We are requesting for full-time equivalent LA2s to start in January. I'm not sure where they will go with that at this time. They may put their committee. Sorry, I'm getting all this weird sunshine at this time of night. I think they may push that to the committee.
You look like you have a halo.
I was really going for that, Tricia. I was thinking that if I could just scooch down. But
well timed during the budget item.
Budget time is the time to have a halo. So
nobody's ever accused me of having a halo before. So, but so I'm actually feeling a lot more confident of the budget this year, in that the most difficult component of it has already passed by the JPA. And congratulations. Thank you. And this will really provide a measure of relief to the staff.
Great.
I'll go comment.
To Mr. Wynne, and then
I've made this comment once before, but this is about all these trusts, you know, that are in Appendix B, you know, $100,000 trust for, you know, vibrant physical spaces downtown. I mean, it seems like this would be the perfect time to spend that on the downtown branch, you know, and there's 48,000 for Scotts Valley, and there's a $9,000 trust to purchase music literature. I mean, it just seems like, and it would clean up the budget too. I mean, there are all these tiny little pots that are designated, you know, for specific things. And I would just love to see us invest that money in these new buildings, in the new libraries, in the new strategic plan. This seems like the perfect opportunity to spend down these trusts, just clean up our books and actually invest in a way that the, you know, trustors probably, you know, would have envisioned.
So Bruce Cotter has requested that the library do a quarterly report to the Friends about their trust spending. And I have agreed that we should be doing that. I agree, Tricia, we shouldn't be holding these too long, or if we're holding them, we should be holding them for a purpose. I guess the one challenge I would give back to you, I think that's true of Friends funds as well. And some of the Friends groups have been hanging on.
Could you explain that to me? I don't understand that comment.
Some of the Friends groups, especially the chapter groups, are hanging on to large sums of money. In a couple cases, we've made requests for funds that have been denied. And so I think we both should make plans for our balances.
Thank you.
And if you could help me with that, I'd be grateful.
Okay. Well, Aptos does plan to spend all its money on its new library. So,
and I have found as the new library is open, Felton spent most of theirs or has a plan for it. La Selva Beach as well. But I do agree that we should do quarterly reporting and we should have plans for those resources.
Mhm.
Commissioner Dubin?
Yes, I'm just curious. You may not be able to answer this now, but I'm curious about digital resources, the digital books, and I know they're very expensive. I'm wondering if there has been any creative solutions as far as libraries have been concerned to get those costs down, and also if you are going to need as many resources digitally if you're projecting that over the next year, just because of the pandemic, like how much has changed.
Oh, Rena, these are such good questions. And to be honest, I haven't paid attention in a year because I've been so focused on other things.
Yes.
There was a boycott going on a year ago of major library systems and certain publishers. And I haven't been to a national conference. I have no idea where we are on that. Our use did go up significantly. And one of the things that I have to say is we've spent a lot of time teaching people how to use digital resources. I don't think they will ever fully go back. I think that most people, even if you love books, I love the physical book. I also find that, especially when I travel, there's nothing greater than a notebook with 20 books on it, or I can download something while I'm on vacation, sitting in a hotel room. So I suspect we're going to have strong demand. Despite that, I still think that you're going to see a lot of people come back and get physical print because they love it. But I think what we've done is taught a lot of people how to be able to use both. And most of my friends that have gone digital do still have a place for print in their heart. I don't know about you, but there is definitely a time and a place. And with children, print is still print.
Well, I'll just make a comment that I've been using the audiobook collection. It's just fabulous. And sometimes I'll have the book, someone's given me the book, and I'll have the audiobook going instead, and then maybe turn to the book so that I can tell how far I've got to go till the end, right? But the audiobook collection is so strong.
Thank you. We have a selector for audiobooks who's just superb. May she never retire. Sorry, I hope she didn't hear that.
Commissioner Termini.
Okay, my question on the budget, Susan, is you had some brilliant charts in the reopening plan about which branches are closed, which ones are open, and you stepped us through, by 6-month periods, what's what.
Yep.
Very clear, very wonderful. You had some great information about staff, where we pared down, where we have to pick up in the budget report. If you could ascribe staff positions to the open and closed branches in the plan to reopen, I think it would help you with the governing board. It would help me to see exactly how people are being deployed and what the curve is going to really be to bring us back up to full employment.
And so you suggest sort of putting that component in the budget document itself.
Right, but overlay staff needs onto those 3 or 4 charts that you have in the reopening plan.
Okay.
And I think that that's sort of what I'm hearing from members of the governing board that I've approached, that they just haven't quite got their head around that yet.
I'll do that. Thank you, Mike. That's great.
Great.
Staff needs, sorry, definitely. And the hours charts. Thank you.
Other questions, comments from commissioners? I think we do have a comment. Not sure if that was last item. Moderator Jones, can you verify?
Chair Bass, we do have a comment, and it's from Bruce Cotter from the Friends of the Santa Cruz Public Libraries. And he says, we are undertaking a similar review with the Friends, specifically referring to fund balances. And that ends his comment and public comments.
I think that'll make us a better steward, Tricia.
Great. So a couple of really good pieces of discussion and feedback on this item. I know, Susan, you said you don't necessarily need an action on this item, but there is a recommended action, which is to endorse the proposed 21-22 Joint Powers Authority budget.
That would be great.
Are there any motions by commissioners?
So moved.
Second.
So we have a move by Commissioner Termini, a second by Commissioner Wynne. Clerk Simona Vargas, will you please call a roll call vote?
Jennifer Mount,
Aye.
Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Mike Termini,
Aye.
Tricia Wynne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rena Dubin,
Aye.
and Chair Lindsay Betts.
Aye. So that motion passes unanimously. Great, thank you, everyone. That concludes our general business for tonight. Item 8 on our agenda is our scheduled upcoming meetings. Just a note to commissioners, our next meeting is July 19th at 6:30. This will be another virtual meeting via Zoom. And I believe that concludes our agenda for tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Welcome,
See you soon.
Jennifer.
Welcome,
Thanks,
Jennifer.
everyone.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Good night.